There is a secret the ancient alchemists knew, but that most people today completely ignore. They were not just trying to turn lead into gold. That was only the metaphor. The real laboratory was always the human mind, and the real transmutation was always mental. The Kybalion, the Hermetic text that preserves the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, reveals something unsettling. You are not a victim of your mental states. You are not a slave to your emotions. You are not stuck in your thought patterns. All of this can be transmuted, transformed, alchemized from the inside out. But here's the problem. Society taught you exactly the opposite. They taught you that you're just like this, that your personality is fixed, that your fears are unchangeable, that your limitations are permanent. That's the biggest lie you've ever swallowed. Mental transmutation is the sixth Hermetic principle, and it's the most dangerous of them all. Because once you understand that you can transmute your inner states, you become unstoppable. You are no longer hostage to external circumstances. You become the alchemist of your own consciousness. Throughout this video, we're going to decode the 9 secret laws that govern mental transmutation. Don't expect comfort. Don't expect validation. Expect only the raw truth about how you can rewrite your inner reality and consequently your outer reality. Law 1. The law of mental dominance. He who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power. The first law of transmutation is brutal in its simplicity. You can only transmute what you mentally dominate. There is no alchemy without control. There is no transformation without awareness. Most people are ruled by mental states they don't even recognize. Schopenhauer understood this when he wrote about the will as the primal force. But Hermes went further. It's not enough to recognize the force, you must dominate it. Transmutation begins with the realization that you are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes the thoughts, and the observer can choose. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, practiced this daily. His meditations are a manual of mental transmutation. He didn't deny difficult emotions. He observed them, recognized their transient nature, and consciously chose how to respond. In the midst of war against the barbarians, surrounded by plague and betrayal, he transmuted external chaos into inner serenity through mental dominance. Today, you're bombarded by 60,000 thoughts per day, most of them negative, most of them repetitive, most of them unconscious. You didn't choose these thoughts, they just appear. But here's the secret. You can choose which thoughts to feed and which to let starve. The arsenal. Practice the inner observer. For 5 minutes a day, just observe your thoughts without judgment. Don't try to change them, just observe. This distance is the first step to dominance. Name your mental states. I'm feeling anxiety is different from I am anxious. One is a state, the other is an identity. Master the language, master the state. Law 2. The law of conscious polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. The second law is where most people fail miserably. They believe they are stuck in one pole: sadness, fear, anger, inadequacy. But the Kybalion reveals, you are never stuck. You're only unconscious that the opposite pole exists on the same spectrum, and you can slide between them. Nietzsche perceived this when he spoke of the transvaluation of values. What society calls weakness contains within it the seed of strength. What you call failure contains the structure of success. They're not separate opposites, they're different degrees of the same vibration. Viktor Frankl, Austrian psychiatrist, was thrown into Auschwitz. He watched people mentally collapse in a matter of days, but he did something different. He consciously transmuted suffering into meaning, despair into purpose, horror into a determination to survive and tell the story. He didn't deny the negative pole, he became conscious of the positive pole on the same spectrum and chose to slide toward it. You feel fear before an important presentation? Good. Fear and excitement are the same physiological spectrum: accelerated heartbeat, adrenaline, intense focus. The difference lies only in mental interpretation. Transmutation happens when you consciously recognize this is not fear, this is energy, this is vitality. My body is preparing me to perform. The arsenal. Map your poles. Write down your 5 most recurring negative mental states. Now, next to each one, write the opposite pole on the same spectrum, not the abstract philosophical opposite, but the opposite degree. Anxiety, energized anticipation. Loneliness, deep self-knowing. Use transmutation affirmations. Don't deny the state. Recognize and transmute. I feel this anxiety, and I am transmuting this energy into productive focus.
Law 3. The law of emotional neutralization. The art of polarization becomes a phase of mental alchemy known and practiced by the ancient and modern Hermetic masters. The third law is the most counterintuitive. You do not fight negative emotions, you neutralize them. To fight is to be on the same battlefield. To neutralize is to rise above the battlefield entirely. The Stoics understood this as apatheia, not the absence of emotion, but non-disturbance. Jung called it shadow integration. The Kybalion reveals the mechanism. When you raise your mental vibration above the polar conflict, you neutralize both extremes. You become the unmoved axis while the poles spin around you. Seneca, advisor to Nero, lived under the constant threat of execution. Nero was an unpredictable tyrant who killed on a whim, but Seneca practiced daily neutralization. He did not deny the fear of death. He didn't pretend to be fearless. He lifted his awareness above both fear and courage, recognizing that both were temporary disturbances of a mind he could control. When Nero finally ordered his suicide, Seneca accepted it with absolute serenity, perfect neutralization. Someone deeply insults you. The first impulse is anger. The second impulse is to suppress the anger and fake indifference. Both are failures of transmutation. True neutralization recognizes this person is operating on a low vibration. I can choose not to resonate at this frequency, not because I'm running away, but because I consciously decide what vibrational spectrum I exist in. The arsenal. Third-person technique. When intense emotions arise, describe the situation as if you were observing another person. He is feeling anger because he interpreted this as a personal attack. This distancing automatically neutralizes. The 3-breath ritual. Before responding to any intense emotional stimulus, take 3 deep, conscious breaths, not to calm down, but to neutralize, to rise above the entire polar spectrum.
Law 4. The law of mental substitution. The mind may be transmuted from ignorance to wisdom, from desire to will, from lust to sublime illumination. The 4th law is where transmutation becomes operational. You cannot simply remove a mental pattern. You must substitute it. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you just try to stop thinking negatively, you've created a vacuum that will be filled with more negativity. But if you consciously substitute, you dominate. Carl Jung discovered this in his work with patients.
Repressing a pattern does not eliminate it. It merely pushes it into the unconscious, where it grows stronger. True transmutation happens when you consciously replace one pattern with another of higher vibration. It's psychological alchemy. You don't destroy the lead, you transform it into gold. Benjamin Franklin created a system of mental substitution at age 20. He identified 13 virtues he wanted to develop. But he didn't just try to be virtuous. He created a system where each week he focused intensely on one virtue, replacing old behaviors with new ones, one pattern at a time. At the end of 13 weeks, he had transmuted his entire personality through systematic substitution. You compulsively check social media? It's no use just trying to stop. That's repression, not transmutation. Substitution works like this. Identify the trigger, boredom, anxiety. Recognize the underlying need, stimulation, connection, and consciously replace the behavior with a higher vibration one that meets the same need. Philosophical reading, deep conversation, artistic creation. The arsenal. The substitution map. For each mental habit you want to transmute, create a specific substitution. Not generic, specific. When I feel X, instead of doing Y, I will do Z. Anxiety, infinite scrolling, to 10 minutes of free writing. The 21-day rule. Don't try to substitute everything at once. Choose one pattern. Substitute it consistently for 21 days. Transmutation is an art, not a coup d'etat. Up to here, we've explored the fundamental laws: dominance, polarity, neutralization, and substitution. These are the basic tools of mental alchemy. But now we step into more dangerous territory. The next 5 laws aren't just about transforming negative states into positive ones. They're about transmuting the very structure of your perceptual reality. They're about shaping not only how you feel, but how you perceive and interpret reality itself. Here, transmutation stops being defensive and becomes offensive. It's no longer about dealing with what life throws at you. It's about rewriting the rules of the game. If you've come this far just looking for self-help techniques to feel better, this is the moment to leave. Because what comes next won't make you comfortable. It will make you powerful. And power without wisdom is dangerous.
Law 5. The Law of Radical Reframing. The art of mental transmutation, called mental alchemy, has been practiced by the Hermetic philosophers through the ages. The 5th law is brutal. Nothing has inherent meaning. All meaning is assigned by your mind. And if it is assigned, it can be reassigned. You can radically reframe any experience, any trauma, any failure, not through toxic positivity, but through conscious transmutation of the interpretive frame. Nietzsche wrote, "There are no facts, only interpretations." This is not weak relativism, it is absolute power. Because if you control the interpretation, you control the impact of the experience on your psyche. The Stoics called this judgment. The Kybalion calls it mental transmutation. The mechanism is the same. You don't change the event, you transmute its meaning. Dostoevsky was sentenced to death at 28. He was placed before the firing squad. In the final seconds before the order to fire, the execution was canceled. It had been only a psychological torture by the Tsar. Dostoevsky was sent to 4 years of hard labor in Siberia. Most people would have been destroyed,
but he transmuted. He reframed that experience as his spiritual rebirth. He later wrote, "Now my life will change. Now I will be reborn." And he was. That destruction became the foundation of all his later literary greatness. You were rejected from an opportunity you considered crucial? The default interpretation, "I'm not good enough." The conscious transmutation, "This door closed because a better door will open, and I wouldn't see it if I were stuck here." This is not naive optimism. It is strategic reframing that preserves your personal power instead of handing it over to circumstances. The arsenal. The reframing protocol. Identify a recent negative experience. Write 5 radically different alternative interpretations for the same event. You don't have to believe them, just write them. This exercise breaks the illusion that there is only one possible interpretation. The Hermetic question. In the face of any adversity, ask, "How is this event preparing me for something greater?" Not as magical thinking, but as an active search for learning and transmutation.
Law 6. The law of transmutation through the inverse. Opposites are identical in nature, differing only in degree. Where one ends, the other begins. The 6th law is paradoxical. Sometimes the fastest way to transmute a state is to intensify it to the point of inversion. You push the pole to its absolute extreme and it naturally flips into the opposite pole. It's like a pendulum. The more you push it to one side, the more force it gains to return to the other. Hegelian dialectics operates on this principle: thesis, antithesis, synthesis. But the Kabbalion reveals something more direct. You can consciously trigger the inversion. Schopenhauer noticed this in suffering. When you stop resisting and completely dive into the suffering, it loses its power and begins to transmute. Resistance keeps you stuck at the pole. Conscious intensification catalyzes inversion. Zen monks have a practice called sitting with the demon. When fear or anxiety appears, instead of meditating to calm it, they do the opposite. They consciously intensify those feelings to the maximum. They visualize the worst possible scenario. They feel it completely and observe the inversion point where fear transmutes into a kind of courage that comes from having already faced the worst mentally. The arsenal. Mental saturation technique. For specific fears, dedicate 10 minutes to intentionally thinking about the worst possible scenario related to that fear, without running away. Notice how, after saturation, the fear loses strength. You've transmuted it through exhaustion of the pole. Strategic emotional fasting. Choose one day a week to deliberately intensify a discomfort, loneliness, boredom, total silence. Conscious intensification creates familiarity, and familiarity removes the power of the negative pole. Law 7. The law of transmutation through elevation. Mental transmutation is the art of changing and transforming mental states and mental conditions into others. The 7th law is the most elegant. You don't need to directly fight a low mental state. You simply raise your mental vibration to a frequency where that state cannot exist. It's like light and darkness. You don't fight darkness, you turn on the light, and darkness disappears automatically. Plato understood this with the theory of forms. You transcend the world of shadows by rising to the world of ideas. Jung spoke of individuation as an upward movement through levels of consciousness. The Kabbalion is more practical. Each emotion, each thought exists at a certain vibrational frequency. By deliberately raising your mental vibration, low-frequency states simply can't stick. Alan Watts, the philosopher who popularized Zen in the West, had a technique of transmutation through elevation.
When he found himself in mental spirals of anxiety or worry, instead of trying to solve each worry, he consciously expanded his perspective. He thought in ever larger scales. The city, the country, the planet, the solar system, the galaxy, the universe. The vibration of worry could not exist at that level of consciousness. It automatically transmuted into cosmic awe. You're obsessed with a personal problem, an argument, an insult, a frustration. The mental vibration is low, dense, heavy. Transmutation through elevation works like this. Consciously, you expand the context. In 5 years, will this matter? In the context of my entire life, what's the real weight of this? If I died tomorrow, would I spend mental energy on this? This simple elevation of perspective transmutes the emotional weight. The arsenal. The Watts scale. When stuck in heavy thoughts, consciously expand. Personal, family, community, national, planetary, cosmic. At each level, ask if the problem still has the same weight. Elevation automatically transmutes. Immersion in greatness. Daily, expose yourself to something that naturally elevates your vibration. Deep classical music, high philosophy, vast nature, transcendent art. Not as escape, but as frequency calibration.
Law 8. The law of transmutation through alignment. He who understands the principle of vibration has learned to govern his own mental states. The 8th law reveals you do not transmute states in isolation. You transmute by aligning all your bodies, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, in the same vibrational direction. One misaligned body sabotages the entire transmutation. It's like rowing hard while an anchor is still down. Jung spoke of the need to integrate the different aspects of the self. The ancient Hermetists knew that body, mind, and spirit are not separate. They are different densities of the same substance. When you try to transmute only mentally, but your body is collapsed, your posture defeated, your breathing shallow, you're fighting yourself. True transmutation requires total alignment. Samurai warriors understood this intuitively. Before battle, they didn't just practice mental meditation, they performed rituals that aligned body, martial posture, mind, visualization of victory, emotion, cultivation of calm, and spirit, acceptance of death. This total alignment created the state of Mushin, no mind, where fear could not exist, not because it was repressed, but because there was no vibrational space for it in a fully aligned system. You want to transmute anxiety into confidence? It's not enough to think, I am confident. Your body must embody confidence. Upright posture, shoulders relaxed but firm, deep and slow breathing. Your emotion must feel confidence, not fake it, but cultivate it through memories of success. Your mind must visualize confidence, you operating in the world with complete certainty. When all align, transmutation is instant and deep. The arsenal. The total alignment protocol. Identify the state you want to transmute. Now, consciously adjust. Body. How does this new state move? Adopt that posture now. Breath. How does this state breathe? Adopt that pattern now. Emotion. What specific feeling do I need to cultivate? Access a memory where you felt it. Mind. What thoughts operate in this state? Choose one and repeat it. Triple check-in. 3 times a day, stop and ask, are my body, mind, and emotion aligned? Or am I in internal conflict? If in conflict, dedicate 2 minutes to conscious realignment. Law 9. The law of continuous transmutation. Nothing rests, everything moves. Everything vibrates. The principle of vibration embodies the truth that everything is in motion.
The ninth and final law is the most important. Transmutation is not a destination, it is a continuous process. There is no arriving there. There is no final state. Everything is vibration, and vibration is perpetual motion. Mastery is not in reaching the perfect state, it's in the ability to consciously transmute moment by moment forever. Heraclitus knew, no man ever steps in the same river twice. Everything flows. Buddhists teach impermanence as a fundamental truth. The Kabbalion reveals the mechanism, because everything is vibration, and vibration is movement. Instability is impossible. Mastery is not crystallization, it is navigation. It is surfing vibrational waves with increasingly refined awareness. Marcus Aurelius, even as Emperor of Rome, practiced continuous transmutation until his last day. His meditations were not written as a book for publication, they were daily notes to himself, constant reminders to transmute judgments, fears, irritations. At the end of his life, dying of plague on the empire's frontier, his last words were about accepting the flow. Go to the end of your tasks, mortal, like someone who satisfied returns an olive. Transmutation until the end, not as achievement, but as perpetual practice. You never permanently transcend your fears. You never definitively eliminate your doubts. You never solve once and for all your insecurities. But here is the secret that changes everything. You don't need to. Mastery lies in the speed and awareness with which you transmute when these states arise. A master is not someone who never feels fear. It's someone who transmutes fear into action in seconds, not weeks. The Arsenal. The Transmutation Journal. Every night before bed, write, what state did I transmute today? How? What state still needs transmutation tomorrow? Not as judgment, but as conscious mapping of your inner alchemical laboratory. Transmutation in boredom. Use boring moments, lines, traffic, waiting as a lab. Consciously practice transmuting impatience into presence, not as obligation, but as training. The more you train transmutation under low stress, the faster it becomes under high stress.
Here's the truth no one will tell you. You don't need permission to transmute. You don't need a guru. You don't need a perfect method. You need only one thing: awareness that transmutation is possible. And now you have that awareness. The 9 secret laws of mental transmutation are not spiritual theory. They are consciousness technology. They are operational tools to alchemize the only thing you truly control: your inner reality. Society will keep telling you that you are a victim of your circumstances, your past, your genetics, your personality. This narrative exists to keep you weak, to keep you consuming, to keep you dependent on external solutions for internal problems. But the Hermetists knew something that has now been forgotten. The real laboratory was always the mind. The real gold was always transmuted consciousness. And the real alchemist was always you. Mental dominance, conscious polarity, emotional neutralization, mental substitution, radical reframing, transmutation through the inverse, transmutation through elevation, transmutation through alignment, continuous transmutation. These are not just 9 laws, they are 9 keys, and now you hold them. The question is no longer whether you can transmute. The question is, will you? Because understand this, Hermetic knowledge without application is just cafe philosophy. But Hermetic knowledge consciously applied, moment by moment, is absolute power. The lead of your consciousness can become gold, but no one will do it for you. No course, no therapist, no video. Only you. In your mental laboratory. Every day, forever. Welcome to mental alchemy. Welcome to transmutation. Welcome to the only power that truly matters,
the power over your own mind.